So, the identity of Doctor Who's next companion has been revealed. Millie Gibson will be joining Ncuti Gatwa in the TARDIS from next year onwards, playing the character Ruby Sunday. The news was exclusively revealed on the Children in Need telethon in the UK. Basically, they had announced this was happening beforehand, but with Children in Need, it's always the way every year, where they have loads of different segments to include each year, and they kind of kept teasing the Doctor Who bit, kept teasing it. I think the whole show started at like 7 PM. This particular segment eventually came on at maybe 20 to 9, 8:30, I want to say. So they definitely kept us waiting. It was quite stressful, but what can you do? We finally have the news now that Millie Gibson is the next Doctor Who companion. So I'm going to be breaking down the news, the press release, the information we've got, the images and everything, and just giving some general thoughts and observations about this news, about Millie, about the character of Ruby, and what we might be able to expect from her when she joins the TARDIS next year. So this is quite reminiscent of previous companion announcements in a way, I think, in the sense that here we've got someone who is very much up and coming, very much unknown, unheard of. When we saw TARDIS kind of materialise on the Children in Need stage, and then Millie stepped out, and it's kind of like a case of, who's she? What's going on? They've kind of built this whole thing up. There's been so much tension and oh my god, it's a stress. And then someone steps out, and it's like a complete stranger, which I think in a way it is a good thing, right? Because I guess that's always the case with a lot of the best Doctor Who companions, where it's someone who you've probably not heard of going into it, but then the show kind of propels them to fame and becomes the thing that kind of turns them into a household name. So it's a very weird stage with all these announcements, thinking back to Jenna Coleman like a decade ago, or Pearl Mackie, further back with Free Imagination or whatever. Now, I wasn't around for that first hand, but I've read about it since, obviously, and it's kind of always that thing with those sort of actors, or even further back in the classic series, of course, unknown actors, coming to Doctor Who, where they are, relatively unknown to begin with at this point of, the announcement, the press release, the photo call, whatever, however it's been done across Doctor Who's 60-year history in the different ways. And yeah, you do kind of look at them and think, this is so weird. I don't know you, you're a complete stranger, but at the same time, I'm going to be seeing you in the show now for the next 1 to 3 years, however many years, however many stories, however many episodes. This character is going to be on magazine covers, and book covers. You're going to get an action figure of her, hopefully, character options, fingers crossed, and merchandise and just everything. And you'll be doing Big Finish one day, probably. All these kind of things, to think about. And it's like with a new Doctor or a new logo like we've had recently, where you're seeing someone, for the first time, but you kind of know that you're going to be seeing them a lot more in the coming months, years, whatever. So a very strange one. Adding this kind of companion to the roster of previous, companion names, companion actors. Millie Gibson, the character Ruby Sunday. I think the thing that struck me most of all reading the press release is Millie's age, and presumably the character's age as well. So Wikipedia tells me that she is literally just 18 years old, confirming what they say in the press release. She was born on the 19th of June 2004, which, yeah, it's kind of scary. This is the first time I've had a companion actor who's younger than me. And a lot of people that have had this before, obviously, are older fans. I think, with Ryan and Yaz, okay, the actors were a bit older than the characters, but the characters of Ryan and Yaz were maybe 19 years old back in 2018 or whatever. So many people had that, for that kind of round of the companions back then. But yeah, I expect for a lot of people, and myself included, obviously, this is going to be the first time, for younger generation fans, people that grew up with, David Tennant, Matt Smith, whatever, where the companion, both in terms of the actor and the character, are both younger than them. So like I say, she's 18 years old. The character, presumably as well, is going to be 18 years old or some, similar age around there. Born in 2004, so basically kind of, I don't know, a few months on from the announcement that the Doctor Who was coming back, obviously, when Russell originally brought it back. And obviously just 1 year away, or less than a year away, from the start of Series 1 and from the start of Revived Doctor Who, which, yeah, is a really scary thought, to be honest. I guess the next time this happens, the next new companion we get could well be someone that has been born, within the space of time that Revived Doctor Who has been on air. Someone born after 2005, 6, 7, which is, yeah, very, very scary. In fact, I have just done some brief research because I was curious, just to check how the dates line up. So Millie was born on the 19th of June 2004. And on the 18th of July 2004, so basically just a month later, filming began for Series 1 of Doctor Who and revived Doctor Who in general, which is really, really balmy. I kind of said in my sort of predictions video, prior to the announcement, that I was expecting them to go with someone young and hip and trendy. I'm not sure I expected them to go with someone quite so young, but, hey, it'll be a great thing for the show, I think, in terms of bringing in younger viewers, people, of a similar age or younger, it's got to happen eventually for the show, and it's great, I suppose, that they've kind of taken that step. And obviously Ncuti Gatwa himself isn't quite this young, but he's also relatively young, and so like I kind of predicted, we're going to have two fairly young up and coming stars fronting this new era of Doctor Who, with Ncuti, someone who's a bit more established but still very fresh, very up and coming, very trendy, young, cool, sexy, all that kind of stuff. And now Millie as well, who obviously is less well known. She has done some bits and pieces. I mean, let's just kind of briefly cover what she has done so far in her career. So she has 4 television credits to her name so far, according to Wikipedia. The first of which was for the CBBC show Jamie Johnson. That was her first job, her first gig. And it basically said on Wikipedia, actually, that she attended a drama class in Oldham Theatre Workshop, and she was basically spotted by a talent agency, and that's how she kind of, got the gig and got the job. And then since then, she has done a couple of dramas, so Love, Lies and Records, an episode of that, I believe. She's also appeared in the 3-part ITV drama series Butterfly, it says. Then most recently, she's been in Coronation Street from 2019 to 2022, a regular role, or a role that became a regular role by the looks of things. And for her work on that show, she actually won a Best Young Actor award at the 2022 British Soap Awards, and was nominated for a Best Actress award at the Inside Soap Awards also this year. And she left the role in August of this year, so it's literally just a couple of months ago. And I believe it was announced in Doctor Who magazine, in one of the columns in the most recent issue, that the auditions for Ncuti's Companion took place, I want to say, like the 24th of September or sometime, around that time. So I guess, leaving Coronation Street, she wouldn't have known that she was coming straight into this job, but the kind of the timelines and dates and stuff have worked out quite nicely for her to basically just go from one to the other, presumably. And Doctor Who Series 14, or the festive special beforehand, I should say, and then Series 14, I believe, starts filming next month in December. I'm not quite sure how long it's going to go on for, not quite sure how many episodes there are yet. But that's worked out quite nicely for her, and she's clearly, in demand, up and coming, whatever. Not had a load of TV roles, like I say. I'm sure, Doctor Who fans across the country, across the world, will now be sort of scouring her CV, like we did for, Yasmin Finney, like we did for Ncuti Gatwa, earlier this year. Now we can do the same for Millie Gibson, ahead of her making her debut in Doctor Who as Ruby Sunday. We've also got a press release with various interview quotes, from Millie, from Ncuti Gatwa, from Russell T Davies. I won't read all those out as part of the video, but if you do want to kind of go and read them, go and find them, the link will be in the video description for the press release. Suffice to say, from the glance I've had at them, they all appear to be very positive, very complimentary, and everyone's very excited to work with her. And then we've got these images as well, one of her by herself, sort of lying against the TARDIS, and one of her with Ncuti. The first image of the 15th Doctor and his companion together, or at least the actors behind those characters. I mean, obviously we haven't seen them in character yet, we haven't seen Ncuti's costume, we haven't seen Ruby Sunday's costumes for that matter either. But like I say, very surreal to see that, to think that we're going to be seeing them in promo images, in trailers, on merchandise, in the episodes themselves eventually, once they've come out, once they've been filmed indeed. And obviously in filming photos as well. So, a very, very exciting time for the show. Lots of unknowns, and not a whole lot I can say because I don't know much about her. But, very, very excited to see what follows. Very excited to meet Ruby eventually, presumably in the festive special. I think that's going to be her first episode at Christmas or New Year or whatever next year. In terms of the name as well, very briefly, Ruby obviously kind of, corresponds to the teaser we got, 2 hearts plus a red diamond, which wasn't in fact a red diamond, but was a ruby. Very, very sneaky, very well played. Yeah, I can see that working well. I mean, the surname is slightly more unusual, Ruby Sunday, but hey, I guess it's distinctive, I guess it's sort of reminiscent of stuff like Amy Pond or River Song. In the case of those characters, there was a sort of reason for that slightly unusual surname, because it was to do with Amy and Melody and River Song being Melody Pond and all that kind of stuff. There was a reason there, so maybe there's a reason here as well why this character's name is like a day of the week. Maybe not, who knows. And I think in the Crimson Horror, there was a character whose surname was Thursday. Now, admittedly, that wasn't a Victorian set episode, but hey, it's still not unprecedented in the history of Doctor Who from an in-universe perspective for this to happen. So, yeah, I guess there may be a reason, or there might not. And it might just be Russell T Davies, doing his usual thing, being quirky, coming up with something, and just rolling with it. But, whatever the case, very, very excited to see Millie on screen, and of course, in the filming photos and stuff and interviews over the coming months, no doubt we're going to be seeing a lot of her going forward into this new era alongside Ncuti Gatwa. And the announcement itself is always going to be a memorable one as well, rightly or wrongly, kind of sitting in front of the TV, waiting for this moment, waiting for the segment to come on, waiting for like an hour and a half since the start of the Children in Need programme. But hey, it's for a good cause, what can you say really? But yeah, very memorable, very stressful, very intense, but now we've finally got the news. So do let me know down in the comments below, your thoughts on this news, your thoughts on Millie, your thoughts on her character, on the name of Ruby Sunday, whether you think she's a good choice, whether you think that's a good name, and if indeed you are more familiar with her than I am from her previous work. Perhaps some of my viewers and subscribers are massive Coronation Street fans and you've seen her before. If so, I would love to hear all your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below, that'd be fantastic. If you have enjoyed this video, please do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new for more stuff like this in the future as we move further and further into this new era. And if you'd really like to support the work I do on this channel, then you can find the link to my Patreon page in the video description. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye for now.